Good morning and welcome to our final second Sunday of the Capitol Playhouse Second Sunday Speaker Series. I am coming to you from Seasons Coffee House at the Liberty Theater in downtown Richfield, Washington. We want to offer a big Haidimasi to those that helped us distribute all of our activity bags for the season. It's really important that you come by to Seasons right now because they do a lot to support our community, including showing artwork of the local first, second, and third graders. But today, you can see that this lovely mural that depicts the history of Richfield, but of course I'm here in front of the lovely depiction of the Aquapots Village. You can see a number of the plank houses. Our plank house is a medium-sized plank house if you think about the other ones in the village. So it's really exciting for me to be in front of this mural today and give a thank you, shout out to Seasons. For our final programming today, we have a really good lineup. Misha Woods, a Fish and Wildlife Ranger in the complex, is going to take us on a little bit of the trail talking about oaks and what we can expect from the fall season of our trails out here in the Richfield Wildlife Refuge in the complex. And then you'll join me again later because we're going to do something really fun and we're going to make ink from oak galls, and I'll get to tell you about the life cycle of the oak gall wasp. But finally, my favorite thing about today is that our closing speaker for the year is one of my aunties. Judy Bridges is coming to talk to us about In Search of Our Grandmothers. She is Cowlitz, Chinook, and Iroquois and brings a wealth of knowledge to our community. So far, she's really engaged us with the fire of her arts. One of the reasons we have such elegant mats in the plank house is due to her handiwork. But today, she's going to talk to us about the search of her own family lineages and what it means to be an Indigenous person living in the Pacific Northwest and exploring your own roots. So stay tuned where we learn from one of our aunties about genealogy, ancestry, and how to write your own story. Excited to have you here today, and we'll see you in a little while.
My name's Misha Wood. I'm a park ranger with the Refuge, and I'm here to tell you about a few of my favorite seasonal changes at the Refuge during the fall and winter. The Refuge is a great place to visit year-round. As fall and winter approach, often people think that they're stuck inside. However, with migration, the Refuge is a wonderful place to visit during this time. Sometimes you may need to pack differently and plan a different trip, but it's definitely worth getting out and exploring. Having grown up in the Pacific Northwest, when the rain comes, I sleep so much better and actually love grabbing my raincoat and getting outside. It's my favorite time of year to explore, and I hope after listening today, you'll find some ways that you too can enjoy it. As we go from summertime shades and short sleeves to warmer jackets like fleeces and raincoats, if we plan accordingly, we can get out year-round at the Refuge. Sometimes I like to wear my rain boots or wool socks to keep my feet warm, and that's all I need to enjoy the trail during these wetter, colder months. While the Cardi Lake Trail from G Creek to the Southport entrance, as well as the Kewah Trail along the Auto Tour route closed for the year, the Oaks to Wetlands Trail remains open for you to enjoy. I love walking the Oaks to Wetlands Trail during the fall because as the oaks drop their leaves and the acorns fill the path, you can hear the crunch under your shoes, and you can hear the chitter-chatter of many birds gathering them and flying around, stashing them for another day. My favorite time to visit the Oaks to Wetlands Trail during the fall is right after it has rained. This may mean that the leaf litter and decomposing matter below the tree and trail is dampened and thus creating a great habitat for some of my favorite creatures, such as newts, snails, slugs, and worms. After it's heavily rained, look for earthworms crawling across the trail. Also during this time, if you get down low, you might witness a woolly bear also making its way to its hibernation location. These are little caterpillars that are typically orange and black striped. And look at all the acorns that have fallen. These are great food sources for many species of wildlife, including mallards, wood ducks, Columbian white-tailed deer, and various woodpeckers. Another species that loves acorns is the scrub jay. You'll see them flying around during this time with acorns in their beaks, looking for a place to cache them or store them for another day to come. The turtles that you once saw basking along the sloughs on sunny days will now be hibernating for the winter. As the wetlands begin to fill, they will welcome an abundance of wintry migratory birds, including ducks, geese, and swan. One of the favorite species of the visitors and staff alike that visit during this time of the year is the sandhill crane. Sandhill cranes are a state endangered species, and thanks to the support of our visitors and a hardworking staff, this year we were able to have one successfully breed along the Kewah Trail. The young colt and family will be soon greeted by many other sandhill cranes on their migratory path. The refuge is a wonderful place to visit year-round. Whether you're a photographer, hiker, or like to watch wildlife up close and personal, there's something for everyone to do this fall at the refuge.
Good morning, Juliet McGraw, Community and Cultural Education Director for the Friends of the Richfield National Wildlife Refuge. I'm here to start our crafting segment for our final second Sunday series. But before we start the crafts, I want to teach you about a really interesting, incredible little animal that lives on the Wildlife Refuge. We're going to be making ink with oak galls today, but one of the things that you've probably come and seen on the Wildlife Refuge are what are all these weird golf ball things that are hanging out on the oak trees? They're not a parasite. They have a symbiotic relationship with the oak trees. But before everybody starts getting freaked out, oh my goodness, there's wasps in all these oak trees, I just want to start out with the reassurance on how absolutely tiny these little oak gall wasps are. So you can see from that teeny tiny little hole, they're minuscule wasps. The life cycle for these oak galls is pretty interesting. So oak galls exist anywhere you're going to find oak trees. So I even grew up with a different kind in Texas. But here in the Pacific Northwest with our white oak or our Gary oak, there's a little tiny wasp. Their life cycle is very simple. They will fly around. They will sting a little bit of the oak tree. And then the oak tree has a reaction, kind of like how we would with a histamine response, except they don't get sunburns. They start bringing out this fleshy material. And so the oak will grow into this weird fleshy thing. Now, and when they first start, they look like apples. It looks like there's gala apples taped to all the trees out here, and people frequently go, what's an oak apple? Well, we don't have oak apples, but if you pop one of these open, you can see just absolutely, they do not look like apples at all. There's a whole bunch in there. It looks spongy and mushy. You might have stepped on one and see them explode with a little bit of puffy fungus. But not an apple. Yes, I have cut off a piece and ate one when it's fresh. Incredibly bitter. It tastes exactly what you think oak flesh would taste like. Not fun at all. I don't recommend it. But they're not a parasite. You might be concerned that, oh, I see all these on the trees, especially the younger oak trees. Maybe that's hurting them. But an interesting thing about this oak gall is, so a lot of animals need to eat those larvae, eat those little creatures as they're crawling around in here. And so the oak gall that I have right here, you can see on this side, it looks completely whole. But on this side, you can see where a squirrel or a blue jay has poked in and gotten all the larvae and the little wasps out. So what do you think that does for the oak tree? Because we know that most squirrels don't find all their oaks, so they're going to take them and cache those things. But if they have a snack that they can eat in the tree right there, then the oak tree gets the benefit of those acorns being moved further across the forest. So when you have an animal that is collecting food from an oak tree for two different ways, you got your Insta snack in your oak gall, and then you've got those acorns that you're going to cache. And so you can see how that works for the jays and the squirrels, because they have food all over the landscape, but oaks need a lot of space. And so to have animals take those seeds very, very far away from the tree helps the oak tree, and it helps the animals last through winter. And that's just a little fun thing about these oak galls before we start to make an oak gall ink. So I'm going to give a little close-up more of all these varieties that we just collected today on the trail. And then I'm going to show you how to make some really cool ink with these. Okay, so now we have just a little information about oak galls and oak gall wasps under our belt. So the craft is you would have picked up your bag and all I gave you this month was an oak gall, but you have to watch the video for the rest of it. So we need to make a tannin to make a dye. So I've got, it's a very lovely pink one. I've never seen one like this. And we've got to start crushing up because there's a big difference between a dye and a paint. So a dye actually changes the color of an object, where a paint just covers over it. So paints use pigments and dyes use stains. So you can see these oak galls fluff up really quickly. I'm going to go ahead and add the second one in here. You can see there's a little wasp where it escaped. There we go. So it's already getting pulverized. Again, you can do this with a roller, with the back of a spoon, gently with a hammer. I just happen to have a job where I'm always squishing up weird things, so I have a dedicated mortar and pestle. I did not bring my sifter, so this is gonna be interesting. I might get darker spots. So if you wanna take a close-up, you can see how the bigger pieces start floating to the top. You give it a shake every now and then if it's not too full, you can actually do a circular grinding method. But because I have never dyed one of my own cloths, I'm gonna keep it chunky. I wanna see if it changes the process. So you have this that's gonna make your tannins. So you can see here, you've got a tannin. That is something that dyes. A little bit later in the tutorial, I'll talk about how you can combine this with something else to make an ink. So I'm going to soak this and stir it. I don't mind stirring with my pestle because it's going to crush things up more, and this, like I said, is the one that's dedicated for things like this. This is not the one I cook with. Now that we have a solution started with our tanning mixed, I am going to pour it in here. Now, you do not have to do this. I do not mind getting my hands really gritty, and I know that I've got enough fresh water out here that I can rinse my hands off immediately, so I'm not going to dye myself. But you can see the different pieces of the oak gall in there. So it's kind of a funky solution, but you can already tell how it is becoming a dye. The water has already started to be tinted. I'm going to crush up some of these things. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I've got a rather large towel. I want it to soak up as much as possible because I'm hoping to get some sort of gradient effect. I don't want it necessarily to be uniform. So I want to soak that up first, and then I'm going to pour fresh water. I'm going to multitask. I'm going to wash my hands while adding more water. So what you want is, after you've gotten in there, make sure what you have is completely submerged. Now, I did not use a lot of oak galls, so it's going to be fairly light. I'm going to probably set this out in the sun while we still have a little bit of sun and see what comes out for a few days. So it's a very simple way to make a very simple dye. Any of you that have oak trees in your backyard probably have oak apples, otherwise known as oak galls. So this was a way you could dye fabric. This is a way you can dye weaving materials. And we're going to see in a few days, as I let this soak, how it turns out. And I'll post it online and let y'all know how it worked out. Hopefully, you will give me some pictures of what you did before. Now, here's a fun fact about the historical era. We made a tannin out of those oak galls. But you can look online. There's several different tutorials on YouTube on how you can make a ferrous ink. And you can see these are labeled iron water and tannin. So when we're able to do this activity together again at the refuge, I will have an iron water solution that is ready to go. The advantage of the iron water is that when you mix the tannin and the iron water together, you would get what's called a ferrous-based ink. And what you can see is that this ink is very black. It stains glass. So these are, when we make paint at the refuge out of that ferrous-based ink, these are a few of our jars that we've used over the years. You can see how stained they are. But here's our fun fact for the day. Ferrous inks were used in a lot of the United States of America's foundational documents. Ferrous ink, such as oak gall ink, was used in the Declaration of Independence, and you can see that today.
So here we've got some dyes and we can figure out how to make inks. And please definitely send in how your dyeing projects went. I would love to see them. And you can get me at cathapodal@richfieldfriends.org. Thank you. I just wanted to thank you all for joining us today. Again, a special hayumasi to Seasons Coffee House, who has been distributing all of our craft bags for our speaker series this season. And a definite thank you to Fish and Wildlife Ranger Misha Wood for hosting our trail tip today. And again, thank you for enjoying the mystery of the oat galls and oat gall ink with me. I hope that you stay tuned for a special presentation with community elder Judy Bridges, who is Cowlitz, Chinook, and Iroquois, and is going to share a lovely story about her own research into her family history, what it means to be an elder in our community today, in searching for our grandmothers, our special presentation that is coming right up.